biggest station in the world, playing all of today's hits. You're listening to Instinct Radio.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Dr. Marquita Blades Show, Candid Conversations that Create Change. I am Dr. Blades, and I have with me today a very esteemed panel of experts on mindfulness. Our topic today is mind over matter, how teacher and student mindsets impact student achievement. So we're going to be talking about everything related to what we think, how teachers may project their thoughts onto students, and what the overall impact of that is on student achievement. I'm going to have each one of my guests introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about what they do, and then we'll jump right into the conversation. So, Owen, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Marquita. My name is Owen Griffith. I am so grateful to be here today. Thank you. I was a school teacher for 11 years. I taught 7th grade and I taught 4th grade. And for about a year, I've been working through university, teaching their college education, getting this message of mindset out to teachers, trying to give them some hope. And I started to implement some of this stuff about mindset in the classroom with mindfulness and then gratitude, and it really caught fire. And so I was asked by a publisher to write a book on using gratitude in the classroom. And it was a bestseller. So it shows that teachers are hungry for some positive mindset. And I just finished putting an e-course together that's going to be available in March for teachers to learn how to use mindfulness, gratitude, a lot of positive things in the classroom, research-based, solutions-based. And I really am glad, Marquita, that you've set up this forum here where we can, get the positive message out to educators who've been in the classroom and to those new ones. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming, Sulonda.
Ooh, I love that. Okay, this is going to be fun. Dr. Marquita, this is really a beautiful thing because I'm always looking to be in a room with people who are wanting to help others, especially teachers, aspire to be the best they can be as they move towards their potential. So I teach people to create healthy relationships by learning to love themselves, by clearly communicating what they want, and managing what they don't want. So that's the gist of what I do. By trade, I'm a psychotherapist. I have a private practice called the Inner Circle Counseling Center, and I actually work with educators, administrators, and teachers, helping them to manage what comes with the day-to-day grind and rewarding system of teaching.
Yes.
And so, so that's what I'm doing now. I've also published 2 books that help men and women learn about each other. So it's just not in love relationships, but it's also working with the opposite gender and learning how to manage their own emotions and their mindset to really get what they want out of life.
Thank you for being here, Adrianne.
Hi, I'm excited. I'm loving hearing what you all are sharing. This is great. So I'm Dr. Adrianne Pinkney, and I am an integrative wellness and life coach. My background is in education, so I used to teach 7th grade social studies in an all-girls context where I met my friend here.
Yes.
We used to work together. So I did that for a few years, and then I went on and got my PhD in education to teach teachers to teach children, and that is what I do at Virginia Tech. But I found that my calling was actually beyond that, and that was to really help people get skills that we often don't get in schools or in teacher education programs, which are learning how to talk about our feelings, learning that our feelings matter, learning how to say no, knowing that you're worthy of boundaries. And really, a lot of the work that I do with young women, specifically young women of color, is about unlearning some of the unhealthy messaging that we get in society, at home, sometimes even in church and school, the things that hold us back that are sitting in our subconscious and really affecting our behavior. So that's the work that I do, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. And I'm super, super, super excited. We have a 4th panelist on the phone all the way from Minnesota. Jamie.
Hey everyone, this is Jamie Ferrell. Thank you so much for having me. I taught school for 4 years, and in the last year that I was teaching, I was lucky enough to teach with both Dr. Pinkney and Dr. Blades. And during that year, it was I was teaching 6th grade. I had previously taught 5th grade and 3rd grade. And I was a brand new teacher, so I was just figuring out what teaching was all about. And similar to Dr. Pinkney, I kind of had this realization that I was limited in the classroom. It was all about focusing on the academics of the student, especially with No Child Left Behind, creating the assessment culture. So I left teaching and went on a personal journey of my own. I became a yoga instructor. I got certified in the emotional freedom technique, which is also called tapping. And that's all about connecting to your own emotions, identifying those emotions, and helping to reframe them to be more positive. So I currently do some of that work, but I'm mostly involved in freelance writing with 2 different startups. One is called Nutmeg Aspirin. It's a startup that's focused as a community resource on holistic well-being. And the other is called the Unschool, which is a social impact organization that's about creating positive change.
Thank you for joining us, Jamie. So I'm going to start. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into our first question. I want each of you to share with the audience your general thoughts around student mindsets, teacher mindsets, and how they impact student achievement.
I'll start. Again, this is Dr. Pinkney. So I think that we all hear messages before we go to school. About what is going to be expected from our teachers, about what we are expected to do. And kids get messages every day, whether it's a message they get from their parents, you're going to do great, you're smart, you're enough, you've got it, just show them what you know. Or messages that they hear, especially children of color hear things like, they're looking for you to fail. So don't you go in there and show them that what they think about you is true. Or messages like, you have to be twice as good or work twice as hard to go half as far. Mm-hmm. And how these messages affect our beliefs about ourselves. If I, in my mind, think these people are looking for me to fail, then I am not going to raise my hand and ask for help when I don't know, because I don't want to prove them right? And I think a mother or a father says that from a loving place, maybe a place that they think is going to motivate, but really causes a lot of emotional and psychological harm. So people come to school already feeling unsafe, already feeling unloved. So really, there's so much in our minds about school. Even if you have a parent who says, Miss such and such loves you, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I know she loves you. That has a lot, that will greatly affect how that child feels in school every day. Yes. So when we talk about the mind, we have to get really clear about what is being inundated in our mind from society and what we see on TV about what school is, what our parents tell us what school is, and just our personal beliefs about ourselves. And children are already formulating those when they walk into the door on the first day, whether they're 5 or 15. I think that matters quite a bit.
I agree. What I'm finding when teachers come and administrators come and they sit and they can just they see the doors closed, they can say what they want to say. There's a lot of pressure to help these young people develop into functional adults. And with the environment that many of our children are growing up in, it isn't easy because it's a counter process. They learn one thing at home, the children, and then they're with the teacher, 6-7 hours a day, 9-10 months out of the year. And the teachers have this pressure of saying, okay, well, I can't in one sitting undo what they're learning at home and even try to tell them, no, what you're learning at home isn't everything you need to survive, so let me overlay that with this. And so now they're working with, okay, I have to teach this child behavior skills, right? I have to teach this child how to love themselves. I have to teach this child what the world really is. And then I have to teach them how to do an algebraic problem or maybe even just basic arithmetic. That's a lot of pressure for teachers. And when they aren't getting the support from the administration, that's even a bigger stress. The numbers are rising in terms of depression, paranoia, anxiety, family-related issues among our teachers, particularly if it's a woman, because women are sort of designed in a way with her hormones and biology. She's just supposed to take it all on and make it work. So burnout isn't recognized until someone says, hey, wasn't your hair fuller? Hey, you've lost about 10 pounds. Did you notice? You know, or hey, you've lost that smile I used to see every morning when you come in and see the children. And then they have to think, oh, but then that still gets pushed to the back. And then they have to come forward and still rise for the children, rise for the family. So there's a lot of pressure. And men too. I'm also finding men saying they need more support in the school system. And maybe the administrators, this is not to blame the administrators, but there's a system that we have to put in place. That's why I love the gratitude. You know, I love that we have to start addressing our minds and our emotions more.
Wow, those are,
Yeah.
that's great. I really like the points you both made. And I just like to piggyback on that. You know, where I met Marquita was out at a conference, and my workshop was on preventing teacher burnout. And that statistic that half our teachers leave in the first 3 to 5 years. You know, we were talking before the show with Dr. Pinkney here about how that old mindset that teachers would retire and work 20 or 30 years, that's really a thing of the past. Unfortunately, you can't go back to your elementary school and see that teacher. And we are burning out educators, and that mindset, that negative mindset, gets transferred to the students. So the students who come and are already, you know, fighting off some negative things, and then they have a teacher who doesn't want to be there in the classroom. You know, I love that. I think we've come to a critical mass now at a point where we are reaching out for help, and teachers are saying we need that support, and administrators are looking for what they can give them so that you can flip that mindset and you can find something to be grateful for. You can introduce something like mindfulness, which has been shown to help students achieve better academically and then socially. Socially, they feel more connected with their peers. Socially, you know, they feel more confident and less depression. So I'm glad, you know, at schools, they're looking at the whole teacher and the whole student. You know, how can we help this entire school grow as a community?
Very good. Jamie?
Yeah, those are all great comments, and I'm in total agreement. One thing I'd like to add is that it's a statistic that I first learned whenever I got into mindfulness, and it's the fact that on average, humans think 60,000 thoughts per day. And of those 60,000 thoughts, 98% of them are repeated the next day. So we are programming our minds, and I heard Dr. Pinkney say that as well. We're programming our minds based on the input that we're receiving, you know, whether it be from parents, from social media, from news, from music, from friends, you know, from our environments. And so if we're unconscious to the thoughts that we're taking in, then, you know, we have thought patterns that don't even originate in our own brains. So as students, it can be tremendously dangerous if those thoughts are ones that are critical and that are leading to self-doubt. At the same time, you can flip that around so that the thought patterns are tremendously powerful, and you can believe in yourself, and you can affirm yourself and be empowered. And on the teacher's perspective, I really like what other panelists are saying about teacher burnout, because it is such a holistic investment to be a teacher. And we don't often realize whenever we're not taking care of ourselves. And whenever we slip in that regard, we can also lose confidence in the way that we connect with students. So I think this is a critical conversation, and I think it's one that needs to happen more frequently.
Oh, thank you all for those opening comments. We actually already have some comments from Facebook, so I'll go ahead and read those. Some of our children are told some bad sayings. Yes, and I do believe, as Dr. Pinkney stated, a lot of times the parents are saying those things out of love. They don't even realize the seeds that they're planting. Another comment, students' mindsets are being challenged daily, and they are put in limbo because teacher and parent mindsets are very different. There must be a happy medium, student, parent, and teacher mindset in order to give students what they need to grow and develop and be ready to succeed. So that leads me to the next question. Are teachers even equipped to help students with their mindset? Like, do teachers even realize sometimes that this is something that needs to be addressed?
I think they're under-equipped. So I wouldn't say they're not fully equipped. I think they're under-equipped. And this is coming from my clients, where they feel like when they go into the classroom, the first thing they have to do is take that deep breath, because they feel like they're having to mentally prepare themselves to defend who they are. That's number one. And number two, to try to convince a group of young people that education is worthwhile, okay? And number three, making sure they don't cross any lines to be terminated from their jobs, okay? That looks like yelling, screaming. Unfortunately, for some teachers, they have been putting hands on students. So under-equipped, I would use that term, because many of them are, one, trying to deal with their own mindsets, because teachers do have a lot going on at home too. I think that we forget about that, so that they have a lot going on at home too. And so when they come into an environment, well, now that's compounded, then it makes it difficult to really focus and be in an environment that is happy, that is conducive, that is supportive. So that's what I would say.
Can I just say, I agree that I don't think teachers are prepared well enough. And Dr. Pinkney and I, again, we were talking, we both work with college students who are going to be teachers, and it's great to be able to give them some of these skills they need. And I mentioned earlier about a critical mass, and I see something happening. The John Templeton Foundation gave $10 million to the Greater Good Science Center out at UC Berkeley to try to find a gratitude curriculum that any teacher could embed into their existing curriculum, so it's not something they have to do new. That was just released last month, and I had some work on it. So the teachers who do hear this message and they want to do something, they don't have to wait for their administrators to tell them how to do it or go on a retreat. You know, they can go online now and look up that gratitude curriculum. I have a couple links that I think will be posted on this. So any teachers who are listening, you know, there is hope out there, and we can, even if we come in underprepared, I think we can reach out for that support and turn things around in the classroom.
Okay, my next question is for,
Can I say something
right
real
ahead.
quick? Okay. Almost missed it. I was going to say, I think also teachers have to be honest and do some work around their own minds, right? When they come into the classroom, what is it that you are thinking? What do you believe children capable of? What do you believe about boys? What do you believe about black boys? What do you believe about Hispanic boys? And get honest about what are the downloads, and how might they show up in my classroom. So if I have the thing that boys will be boys, right, I might allow for certain behavior from him that I might not allow from her. And if I'm not conscious of that and honest with myself about that first, then I might not be able to check myself or, you know, or be fair to my students. So I think that that's not a part of teacher education programs. Like, what do you really believe about these people? You know, what do you really believe certain students are capable of? You know, what do you really believe a 6-year-old can do? What do you really believe a 16-year-old can discuss? And how all of those thoughts and beliefs, those mindsets affect what we do, what we bring into our class, and what we don't. Because we're the gatekeepers, right? Teachers are the gatekeepers. Got to get honest about that. So they're not going to see beyond what we show them. So if I don't believe that they're capable of seeing this, then I'm not going to show it. And I have to be honest about what I believe first, my own mind. And I think a lot of teachers don't use their mind when they teach. Oh, God, I'm being real honest today. Okay. Don't use their mind when they teach, because a lot of the way we set up education, we don't ask them to.
Right.
So we give them a pre-designed curriculum with a book and all that kind of stuff and say, you don't even have to think that hard. But what we want are mindful teachers, critical teachers, teachers who take a minute to breathe, reflect. Somebody said reflect. Reflective teachers. Yeah. Okay. I'll stop.
To add to your point, Dr. Pinkney, not only should teachers be honest about their thoughts about students and what they think they can do and whatever stereotypes that they have embedded, once they are aware of those thoughts, they need to use that to drive what type of environment they're teaching in. Because a lot of teachers are just going wherever the jobs are, and that's not where they're going to be most effective.
Can I say something really quick?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so I want to just say something about mindfulness itself, because many people might think mindfulness is associated with a religion or a way of life. It really is a way of life unassociated to religion. But mindfulness really is being aware of what you're thinking and how you're thinking it and how often you think about it. That's all it is. There's no woo-woo to it. There's nothing else, attached to it. I think about chocolate cake at least 50 times a day. Okay, is that a good thing? Probably not, because I have it for dinner before I go to sleep. Therefore, what I think about becomes a reality. So we have to be careful about what we think about, because it really does become a reality. So I want everyone to think about something that is in their prefrontal cortex, that's just there. It sits there all day long. And then I want you to think about if it actually manifests. Of course, things we think about every once in a while, they really don't manifest. But when you're constantly thinking about it, boom, it's there. Well, I never have any money. Don't ask me for any. Check your pockets. Well, I'll never get over that trauma. Okay, are you afraid to fall in love again, for example? And the other thing is love. I know maybe people don't like to use that word when it comes to education and all of that, but I really think we really need to drop down into our heart spaces when we're working with human beings, period, in any platform.
Yes.
Amen.
I really like what you just said, because capturing the kids' hearts and then their minds follow. I always try to establish that with my students, and I would do a mindfulness practice with them where we would sit for 60 seconds. And it's amazing that when students can do that, and I did this in the 4th grade. I have a student who's in college now, and he came back and he said, that's the best lesson you ever taught me, where I can actually quiet down and be aware of my thoughts. But for me as a teacher, I would realize I'd have a million things to do that day, and that 60 seconds allowed me to see what was going on and where I was that day and get real with the students, and they could get real with me then.
I love that. So that does lead perfectly into my next question, which is directed for you, Jamie, directed to you. Being that you are a yoga instructor, you specialize in helping people learn to balance and control their energy. Can you explain to us why it's important for students to understand that they have control over their energy, number one, and number two, I know that you did practice this when you were teaching, so tell us a little bit about how you were able to help your students learn to balance and control their energy in the classroom.
Sure. So one thing I do want to piggyback really quick off of what Owen was just saying about taking that 60 seconds in the classroom to just practice, implement a mindfulness practice, because that's a really important strategy that I wanted to point out, is the ability to read the energy in the classroom. I feel like now, teachers are so scripted because we have to, make really detailed lesson plans based on so many different factors. And so our teaching styles have often become, extremely robotic in ways. And you've got to be able to have the confidence to change what you're teaching or the way that you're teaching right in the middle of the lesson. So you have to be able to read the energy and see if the kids are connecting with you, if they're engaged in what you're teaching them, and if they're interested. And if not, then you've got to be able to change gears and be dynamic in that way. So I think that's definitely the most important part of a teacher, knowing how to understand and read the energy of the classroom. But as far as students go, what we've been talking about in this conversation is, the dangers of unconscious thought patterns. And whenever you've never considered the things that you're thinking, it can be a very foreign practice. And the only way to get better at it is to continuously practice, to continuously monitor your thoughts. And once you start being aware of the things that you're thinking, then you can become more empowered in your thoughts, because you learn to reframe and re-script your perspectives. So with my older students, one of the main strategies that I used was simply teaching them the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. And the first habit is being proactive and taking responsibility for your thoughts. And I think that once students are aware that, sure, there's circumstances in our lives, in all of our lives, that we don't have control over, but what we do have control over is the way we relate to those circumstances and how we choose to think about them. I think students become so much more empowered in who they are and in forming their identity, so that the younger that we can teach kids this, I think that, the more successful they're going to be in any of their endeavors. And another way, I'm interested in the other panelists' thoughts on this too. Another way to practice this is by making sure that you are putting problem-solving activities in your instruction regularly. Because the way that our assessment scale is set up, you have grades A through F, and once you've made an F or even a D, you think you're a failure. And if you talk to anybody who's succeeded in business, in entrepreneurship, in creative work, they'll tell you that failure is the cornerstone of their success. Yes. Learning how to fail is extremely important. And I don't think that we're doing that justice in classrooms today. So making sure that, you're teaching kids how to solve problems, how to reframe failure, and see it from a different perspective is really important.
I love what you just shared there, and it reminds me of growth mindset, the whole idea by Dr. Carol Dweck, and she talks about that failing forward, how, a lot of us and kids will come from a mindset of I have to look good, I have to look smart, and achievement. It's good you got that A. That's not as good reinforcement of I love how hard you worked. So if we reinforce the process and make them not afraid to take the more challenging thing. A lot of kids in high school now will refrain from taking the more challenging class because they want to get all A's.
Right.
Versus reframing that, using that, and then the college application say, I took these more challenging classes because I wanted to grow. I had that growth mindset.
Absolutely. I remember doing that in high school. I didn't take human anatomy and physiology because Dr. Phillips was a hard teacher, and I did not want to mess up my Hope Scholarship. You're absolutely right. We have another comment, and this is dangerous, from Vicki Kirkmay. Let me just take a moment to give a shout out to Vicki. She is the lead author on the Whole Truth Anthology project that's going to be released in January.
Excellent. Right.
And I am a co-author on that project. So, hey, Vicki. She says some educators don't know their philosophy of teaching, and that's dangerous. If you don't know what you think about education and how you feel about the learning process, it's really hard to be mindful of your thoughts and to get those centered around what's best for the students. And another comment, American society as a whole is burned out. The large force at work is the government, who controls and guides the mindset of our children and misinformed adults. The schools need to encourage and facilitate parent and teacher workshops. So that goes back to what you were saying earlier, Owen, that this is just a massive issue that is being brought to the forefront now. It's getting attention now that so many people are facing burnout and so many teachers are leaving the field in rapid numbers and in rapid time. So, Dr.
I would like to respond to that. One of the things I think is really encouraging teachers to think of themselves as professionals. You said, do they know their teaching philosophy? Well, I know in our program you have to write a philosophy of education, but it's like another thing that you have to do to get out of the program, right? So, and they write these great things, and I don't know if they revisit them when they're in the classroom. Have you read this again? Do you come back to this in your second year and said, oh my goodness, this is where I started before I was disenchanted, before I was tired, before I was burnt out. This is what I believed. And one of the things I encourage teachers to do is hang your degree in the classroom. It's so easy to forget that teachers are professionals. The kids can forget. There's no other professional that you spend as much time watching them work. There's no other professional who's probably going to give you as many hugs, So it's very easy to forget that these people are scholars, that they're trained practitioners. And it's easy for them to forget. So I encourage them, tell your students you're going to a mindfulness in the classroom workshop. Tell them that you are investing in improving your practice, that you take care of yourself, because everybody forgets about what teachers do and what they need, and that they're college-educated professional people.
It's so interesting that you bring that up, because I saw a post online maybe last week where teachers were commenting that they feel as if the teacher certification process is too difficult and that we shouldn't have to go through so much to be a teacher. While I am of the opposite mindset, I think you should have to go through so much to be a teacher because this is a noble profession. It's important. You are shaping the structure of the entire future. So why shouldn't you have to go through a strenuous process? But with that being said, we can't lose sight of what it takes to become a teacher. We can't lose sight of the fact that we are the ultimate professionals. And I think that's why those teachers may feel as if, well, we shouldn't have to do all of that because a lot of that prestige has been taken away from the profession.
Good point.
Okay, so we have another comment. The school curriculum needs a complete overhaul, especially in the subject of history. All right, Dr. Pinkney, as a coach and therapist, your work is rooted in emotional wellness. So can you tell us, first of all, what emotional wellness is and how a person's emotional wellness may be distorted by the mindsets of others around them?
Okay, can you let me see that? I'm going to answer it. So what's emotional wellness? Emotions are your feelings. And we as a society learn that our feelings don't matter. Very, very early on for many of us, when you go to cry and somebody says, fix your face. Or you go to hurt and they say, you better not cry. After something painful has happened to you, you learn on a very young level that your feelings don't matter. And unfortunately, many of us learn that at the same time that we're learning to walk, learning language. So, it's primal. It's in the download. It's in there. And dare I say, many of us are walking emotional retards. And I use the word retard because I mean to stunt growth. That's what that word means.
Yes.
Stunted in your growth. So when you are learning to feel, children are so emotionally honest. When they hurt, they cry. When they tired, they fall out. That's honest. And then as we grow, many of us become dishonest, and we learn that from our caregivers. I work with folks who are emotional 4-year-olds. They are sad, mad, or happy. I'm like, you don't have more words than that? I need you to correctly identify a feeling. And, they don't have the language of I'm discouraged, I am despondent, I am confused, they don't have the language. And they didn't learn it in school. So that is emotional. That's emotional wellness, being able to correctly identify your feelings, to talk about your feelings, to know that your feelings matter, to take the information that you collect with how you feel and make another choice. This makes me feel bad a lot. So why do I commit to that? Why did I marry that? Okay, so, those kind of things, right? This makes me happy. I should move in that direction. So what was the question? Can you tell us how a person's emotional wellness may be distorted by the mindsets of others around them?
I think you kind of already.
Oh, my God, and not necessarily based on their own beliefs. Yeah, and that's the thing. I do a lot of workshops on recognizing those beliefs. Especially a lot of the work that I do is with women of color, but some of the things that we believe, and you better not cry. That's one of them that we talk about. Pray about it, which is, when we're lost, if we just go to prayer, then that should solve all of our problems. What goes on in this house stays in this house, which is a belief based in silence. And, you are sitting 40 years old struggling to talk about what happened because you learned really early to protect crazy people. So, it's in the beliefs that we get in schools, too. We hear things in schools. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And some of us are, grown in adult relationships or in adult situations and not able to say, I'm not happy here, because they don't think that's nice. So, really getting clear and honest about the stuff. And some of it's great. Some of the stuff that we learn is important. Brush your teeth every day. Adrianne, you deserve to make yourself look like something when you go outside. Thank you for that, Mom. I have it, you know. And there's some other stuff you gave me I had to throw away because it wasn't working for me. And it was having me be dishonest and tired and beat up inside. And, you know, really letting children know and adults know that our feelings are important. Like, that's the key to figuring out where we should go, what we should be doing with our lives, what we should stop doing. That is so important. I can't talk about how important it is enough. Okay.
I love that. Can I just say something here? I taught fourth grade, and being a male teaching fourth grade, I came from a big family. I have 4 sisters, so they trained me well. But the great thing about that is I would tell the boys, strong men do cry. It's okay to be sensitive and cry. And I would tell them, I cry sometimes. And I think that's important. And some of these kids, you know, it was great for them, I think, you know, when they're 9 and 10 years old, if I can plant that seed in there and that mindset, that it's okay to be strong and you can have that full range of emotions. Because unless you have that full range, you can't live a healthy life, right?
You know, that reminds me, I've actually spent 4 years in the classroom, long-term commitments, and I commend teachers. I mean, I just saw some beautiful things happening with the children in these classrooms, and I taught 4th grade and 8th grade. In the 8th grade, I was known as Crazy Smith because a lot of times it was stressful teaching them. They were 8th graders having to take a reading, right, when they should have been taking a foreign language. So they were already mad about having to take reading in the first place and then being called out in this classroom. So I adopted this way of dealing with my own stress, which was through the body, as well as telling them what I wanted them to do. And what it looked like is, what do you need right now? Right? So I made that smile to balance out the frustration that was coming up because they weren't cooperating. Accountability is what I was thinking about when you were talking, Dr. Pinkney, as well as Jamie and Owen, and your co-author is accountability. Like, what is your story and what are you making your story? Brene Brown does some wonderful work with that. She does work with vulnerability. When I talk about vulnerability, I call it voluntarily being vulnerable. You're allowing somebody in your space instead of feeling like somebody can come along and snatch something from you and you don't have a say. So it's standing in your own power. But what story are you telling yourself? And I agree that we need help rewriting that story. I think, Jamie, you called it reframing, you know, in phrases. But what story do you really want to tell? And to know that you have a right to change your story. You don't have to stick with the one that you've already lived. And that's where many people have the difficulty, is transitioning into something that hasn't happened already, but believing that it's coming into fruition, which is what mindfulness is.
So now I have a question. If we want to teach students to be aware of their thoughts, aware of their emotions do matter. But we're also in a culture where we do feel like a lot of young people are not mentally tough in certain situations. They don't have any resilience. How do we get the balance between the two of acknowledging your feelings and knowing that they matter, but also knowing how to be resilient and how to take the hard times with the good times and keep moving forward? And that's for anyone.
Well, I would say to go along with mindfulness, and I love what everyone said so far, but I think part of that mindfulness I would do with my students, and I try to do with myself, is I ask my question, what should I be learning from this situation? You know, learning from my emotions, learning from this and growing from this. You know, and if I look at it and I'm trying to grow from that, and I'd ask the students and I'd listen to their emotions, try to validate it, and when I could, you know, well, what should you be learning from this? And it helps them identify, you know, do I need to be strong here, or is this somewhere, or do I need to accept, or, you know, is this somewhere stand up? There are times we need to stand up and say this isn't right. And I love to advocate for the students then and tell them this is a trait at 9 and 10. This is going to serve you all your life if you learn how to do it properly.
Oh, I'll be quick. I think that's about the balance of, you know, that generation everybody talks about, the everybody gets a trophy generation, right? They're so entitled. And but the question is, who are their parents? And I think their parents are people who probably didn't feel acknowledged enough. So it's really about finding balance. I love that word. It's one of my favorite words. But finding the balance between, and also recognizing that many parents don't have the skills. You know, like your teenager is just heartbroken because he broke up with her. And he has a right to do that. And you don't have to go and call his parents, or he didn't do anything wrong, you know? You have to learn how to teach her how to, heartbreak is an emotion. Mm-hmm. How are you going to deal with that? It's okay to cry. Mm-hmm. It's okay to have that experience, right? And mom, it's okay that it hurts you that she's hurt. Mm-hmm. You go be hurt too. And all of those emotions are allowed. And I think because we don't know how to just feel certain stuff, we always want to do something. Solve it. Make it go away. Call a teacher. Mm-hmm. Get mad. Fix it. No. No, there's nothing to fix.
Just sit in it.
Just sit in that.
Right.
Just sit in that. Breathe through that for a minute.
I love it. The emotional spectrum.
Yes. And come out on the other side. Because you're not going to get a trophy every time. And not everybody's going to get in trouble because he called her a name or she called him a name. That's not real. So really giving parents and children an emotional vocabulary to understand that they get to be happy and they get to be sad sometimes, and that's part of the process.
Yes, I'm just going to be adding on to what you said because that's powerful. What I was thinking is people they don't know that they matter. And I'm finding that that's a very simple concept, is that they have a right to be here on the planet. They have a right to exist. They have a right to experience what their experiences are, as we all are here to do that. Part of my training is I also have a master's degree in creation spirituality. And all that is that I've studied different ways that people around the planet deal with mental health, deal with the existence of life. And the commonality from Indonesia to Ireland to the Philippines to China to Africa to Native American is this principle of knowing that you have a right to exist. And knowing that you are here for a reason, you're in the physical for a reason, and that, number one, is good enough. And anything else that follows, you're learning to manage because that's your purpose of being here, to learn how to be in your emotional state. And that if you realize that's what it is, you don't take it so personal when things appear to go against you, and you're not always looking for the reward or the flow for you to be satisfied in your own selfish way. So that's what I was thinking about.
That's great.
It is. Jamie, it sounded like you were going to say something a minute ago.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in because one really interesting experience I've had in doing the emotional freedom technique with people, which work primarily with adults, but inevitably, because people are talking about really difficult situations, trauma that they've experienced in their life, as they begin to release those emotions, they start to cry. And as soon as somebody starts to cry, the next guaranteed statement is, "I'm sorry." And it never fails. It never fails. As soon as people get emotional and start to cry, they apologize for it. And it's exactly what the other panelists have been saying as far as what's been engraved culturally, that we don't show emotions. We don't, we're not supposed to feel this way. This is bad. This is negative. And I think that lack of resilience comes from that pendulum swinging so far the other way. And so we just don't have the skill sets. They haven't been developed for people to take responsibility for their emotions because they're so pent up in people. And if you just hold on to things and, keep them tucked in, then, of course, you don't have any kind of tools in your toolbox in order to deal with the negative or unexpected or hurtful things that happen in your life. So I think it's got to be a cultural conversation that happens as a society. That this is the human experience, and emotions are great. Being authentic is important, and we all have these feelings, and we can unite in that.
Wow, I never realized until just now that what you said about when people start to cry and then the very next statement is "I'm sorry," but that is, I would say, 98% of the time that anybody has ever cried in my presence. That has happened. So that's very powerful. Yeah. We have a comment that I would like to read. I agree that many adults are not emotionally mature, but there definitely is a time and place for teaching children that not all information is to be shared outside of the home. Home should be the safe place. Also, emotional regulation is important as well, and sometimes as parents, It is our responsibility to make sure that our children understand the difference between actual emotions and using emotions that they may not actually feel in a way to get attention, which can be unhealthy. So, how does mindfulness play into children learning? Because if they know how to misuse the appearance of an emotion, does that mean that they do understand fully how to control that emotion?
I think it's important to let children and all people know that you are accountable for your behavior, period. Mm-hmm. So no matter what you feel, what you do with that feeling is where I'm going to hold you accountable. Mm-hmm. So you get to be mad. Oh, God, yes, be mad. Get real mad. But keep your hands to yourself.
Yes, yes.
And that is the point in which, you know, you will be held accountable for what you do. So I think that, you know, giving children permission to feel is fine. You can feel whatever you want. Mm-hmm. You can't do whatever you want.
And y'all, this is exactly how she used to talk to her students.
Oh, God, yeah. And that
same face and everything.
Oh, yes. And I love you.
They couldn't get enough of her.
And I love you. But that is, I mean, but that's society, too, you know, and that's a preparation for real life. Mm-hmm. So, yes, we get up in the morning and sometimes we feel like we don't want to go. We feel frustrated. We feel tired. But it is our actions in which we will be measured by society, by our spouses, by other people, by everybody. What are you doing? Yeah. So, yeah. They still need to do right, whoever asked
that was actually my sister-in-law, Teresa.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so, Sulonda, sometimes, or most of the time, our efforts only involve teaching students to control their behaviors, but you have designed a training program for teaching teachers how to handle and manage their emotions. So can you share with us why you have chosen to focus your practice on the teacher rather than the student?
Yes, okay. It goes back to my little smile technique that I use to help me manage and balance my frustrations, and then also wanting the children to comply, you know, or to be present. Because I have clients who are teachers and administrators, I see the frustration, I feel the pain, I see them really not knowing what to do. Mm-hmm. And what I decided to do is similar to what I do in the sessions, I took and made into trainings, you know, and part of that is what we've been talking about, which is accountability for yourself, knowing what you can change and what you can't. Mm-hmm. It's understanding what to take personal and what not to take personal and why. And to no matter what, keep your own energy levels balanced, because I don't know if you guys know this or not, you know, statistics are always coming out, but every time you get angry, you take 15 minutes off your life. And because it affects the body.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I learned this. I have an anger management certification, and when he told me that, I was like, wait, can you redo the numbers on that? You know, and it's like, yeah, because when you become angry, it just isn't, you know, an outward thing. It's an inward thing. Your body is affected, and many teachers, they're just tired. They're tired. They don't know what to do. So my technique is to teach them their own power. I know we've thrown around that word for a long time, empowerment, right? Mm-hmm. But really teach them where their power lies, and whatever the effects that they have in the classroom doesn't reflect who they are as a person necessarily. So what that means is if they try this new technique and it doesn't work, it doesn't mean they failed. Mm-hmm. If they can't get a child to sit down and be quiet for longer than 5 minutes, it doesn't mean that they failed. But then what do they do with that frustration in the moment? And that's what I teach how to balance. And also helping teachers not to yell or scream or put hands on. That means just nudging, you know, you know, to shaking, you know, because we have a problem with that now. And it's really helping teachers get happy and stay happy, and when they're not happy, knowing how to come back to it and not make it something that they have to hold on to feel like they matter, because many of us do that. There was an article I read in a medical journal a couple years back that said that the human body, human experience, the biology has a greater propensity to be negative than it is to be positive. Okay, meaning that we will swarm to something that isn't beneficial or not good, or upsetting than we would to stay in a happy state. And I said, no, that's not right. Here's another one of these, journals that don't make any sense to me. But then I began to really look at people and how sometimes they relish in staying in that place because there's a fear of expressing and being accepted.
Yes.
Expressing and being accepted. So for teachers, what I'm finding, a lot of them are saying, hey, if the classroom, my students don't accept me, I don't know what to do to get them to accept who I am. And it goes down to race, culture, ethnicity, all of that has a place. So for me, it's about helping that teacher understand their own personal power, rewriting their story, giving them tools that they can actually use for themselves in the classroom with the children.
I think also, Sulonda, a lot of our evaluative methods have taken that power away from teachers. So it is important to teach them how they can find that inner value in what they do, because we are often judged by how our students behave, how they perform on tests. And so, teachers do need to know that their work still does matter, even when the students are not all quiet and sitting in their seats.
Yes, and to find a way to still love what you do.
Yes.
I mean, that's critical, because come on now, we're not here very long on the planet in these bodies, and I think that it's important that we find joy and happiness in every single aspect of our lives.
And I'm finding that a lot of the extraordinary teachers are no longer teaching. And it's probably attributed to the reasons that we're discussing now. And the bad apples are the ones that are left in the system sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, but we were talking earlier. I have 85 students I work with on a weekly basis, and I'm trying to look exponentially. If I can instill some of these in those 85 students, I'm trying to get them to be the bar raisers who can go into school and use some of these things, and the other teachers see that. And I love what you said about physiologically how those emotions can have a negative effect, that, it increases those stress hormones, cortisol, and those other ones. But, I'm all about gratitude, and I love that they've done studies now. How does that affect us, not just our mindset, but physically? And out at UC San Diego, in the medical center there, they took cardiac patients, so people who had cardiac damage in their heart, and they had them do gratitude lists. And they did a control group, and they did, the experimental group. And they found that in the group that did the gratitude list, there was actually a physiological less swelling and more healing. So it's amazing how those kind of things do affect us. Physiologically, they affect us spiritually, and then they affect the way, we deal with our students and the way we deal with stress. And if we can recapture that passion, I love that you said that. A passionate teacher is infectious. The kids can't wait to go in their classroom. Like, I wish I was one of your students. I just love those things that you told them that, that can change, and it can change a school.
I would add too, thank you for that, Owen, because I think it's important that we give our teachers, our society, people permission to be happy, right? Like, happiness is available and it's okay. I think you were touching on the fact that a lot of people don't even know what to do with feeling too happy, feeling too successful, feeling like my classroom is managed and this is just working. I know some of us come from families, when you smiling too hard, somebody will say, what you smiling about? What you smiling for? What you happy about? Like, that's a problem. So we're afraid to, and it's not even just in our teaching success, we're afraid to let people know we're happily married. Because these other people are loud, and to be a part of the club, you got to be, girl, I'm not that, just to fit in our society, our work society. You can't be too happy with the work that you do. That threatens people. You can't have too much of a successful classroom, love what you do, manage it too well. These other teachers are going to have a problem with you and come and get you. So really just giving people the boldness to say, I am okay, I am succeeding, I am doing it, I'm grateful, I like this. That is unfortunately unpopular.
You are absolutely right. Adrianne, I'm sorry, Dr. Pinkney.
No,
I'm getting too comfortable here. One of the major lessons that I've learned since I have been happily married, I will say it, from my husband, is that to stop dumbing down accomplishments and stop playing down the great things that happen.
Yes.
Because you're right. You don't want people to say, "Oh, she's going on another trip. Oh, what is she doing that for? Oh," and people will make you feel as if something is wrong with you for having success, for being happy, for speaking nicely about your husband that I do all the time, and people, they just get tired of those kind of things. So you're absolutely right. Oh my goodness. Sometimes you feel like you have to apologize for your happiness. Yes, and that comment is from Principal Baruti Kafele. And because I don't play small, I will name drop.
He was at that conference with us, wasn't he?
Yes, he was the keynote there. Yes.
Yeah, I got to meet him. He's a great guy.
So, Owen, you've done extensive work on mindfulness. Tell us how student achievement is impacted when teachers and students operate from a place of gratitude.
Well, thank you for asking that. And I love that about authentically being happy, and bringing mindfulness and gratitude. Those are two of the biggest things I tried to bring in my classroom. And at the school I was at, it was a great school. But when I started doing this, other teachers started seeing the effect it had on me and my students and started asking about this. And in fact, we started meeting before school at 7:30. We'd bring coffee and someone would bake something. And we talk about things we could do to enjoy being a teacher more and things we could do with our students. And so I started looking and I found the studies. There's a lot of social emotional learning now that sees when teachers do go to workshops and learn how to bring mindfulness to their lives and introduce it to students, how academically the students do better. So when the administration sees that, they're behind it, and I love that. And then there's these other factors where you have less discipline problems. The kids seem to work better together. I know when I started doing a simple gratitude list with my students, they took it to another level when they said, isn't gratitude an action? It goes back to our actions, right? I mean, I can feel grateful, but I should be acting on that. And so they wanted to do something for the community, and I love that. And I mean, we know we're doing the right thing when our students want to then do something that spreads out from the school. So, that's something I'll give to teachers, and I'll say, you should try this. And a lot of times they'll be resistors. Well, it worked for you, but I'm just not that kind of person.
Oh, yes.
But
yes.
The research shows those
that'll
are the
never
people.
Work for my kids. Not my kids.
But the people who say, I'm not grateful, I'm not mindful, and then they try it, those are the people who have the most potential growth. And same thing with the students.
Yes.
That student, I would say when we do the 60 seconds, some of you are going to feel really antsy here. Those are the students by the end of the year who would say, thank you. I didn't think I could sit still for 60 seconds. And I tell them, I have friends who can't sit still for 60 seconds without checking their iPhone, without doing this, because we're all so distracted, right? So if we can practice those skills and if we can give them to our students, we're using something we know works intuitively and we can make it authentic, and then we have the research to back it up now. So it's out there, it's available online, and I'm just really excited that I think, we really can reshape the field of education now if we do this enough, because we need more positivity. Teachers are hungry for that. I put this article on Edutopia, and it got 60,000 hits the first day.
Wow.
Yeah, and within the first week, there were over 1 million hits and shares, and it was like, I need to do something about this. And so it's great to do it, and I still feel like I'm only scratching the surface. And this thing we're talking about today, hearing everything you've all added to this, I think is really putting some great articulation, giving teachers things to think about and then to implement that can really change our education system.
Jamie, can you tell us how the organization Unschool contributes to the work around mindfulness and helping teachers restructure their mindsets?
Hey, well, the Unschool is, I would not qualify it as an organization that works around mindfulness specifically. Instead, it's classified as an experimental knowledge lab for adults, and it's for people who, like many of us on the panel, have been frustrated in traditional work settings, whether that be education or design or whatever. And so they're looking to both apply their potential and make a positive difference. So, the main work around that is learning how to see things that are interconnected, thinking in systems, and designing change with positive intent.
So I guess it's more of undoing some previous mindsets then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because, our education system has not changed in decades. And we're all products of this industrialized kind of commercial factory farm form of education. And so it's interesting to hear teachers who are in the classroom now, if they've never challenged their own convictions or the things that they were taught or how they were taught, and undone those learning processes, then it's impossible to teach students the strategies that we're talking about today.
Well, you guys, I hate to inform you that we're 3 minutes over. It's been an hour already. What an amazing conversation. Before we close, I would like for each of you to take a moment to tell all of our listeners and viewers how they can connect with you and let them know about any projects or services and anything that you have going on. Dr. Pinkney?
Okay, I'll go first. You can check me out on my website, www.bjusttheletterwellcoach.com. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter at bwellcoach. Also, I offer workshops, corporate workshops. I go to churches, schools. I love facilitating the opportunity for other people to do their work. That is the basis of this business. I believe that the answers are within, and we just help you go there. It's really exciting, so I'd love to work with you all if you're interested. Okay, be well.
Thank you so much. You can see my author page by going to Facebook, Griffith Gratitude. It's all put together in one word. You can get me at my website. It's my last name, Griffith, and my first initial O at hotmail.com. And I'm really excited. I just put together an e-course with one of the biggest gratitude organizations, gratefulness.org. And if you just Google that, Gratefulness e-course, and it's called Gratitude, A Way of Teaching. You can check out my book, Gratitude, A Way of Teaching, published by Rowman and Littlefield. And I do professional developments and speaking at schools, trying to instill all of this. And I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
I'm going to sign up for your course, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, this has been beautiful. I am full, but I definitely can take on some more. So I wish we had more time.
I know.
You can find me at www.sulonda, SULONDA, Smith, SMITH.com. There you can find information about workshops that I offer for educators, particularly 2 workshops that I have developed to help teachers balance their own mindsets while they're in the classroom. One is called a Walk in Their Shoes, and the other one is called Hands Off. I also do workshops for communication skills as well. So for men and women who wanting to learn how to build better relationships by better communication, you can find me there. Facebook is Get Happy and Stay Happy.
Like that.
All right, Jamie.
Hey, thank you again so much. This was just such an uplifting and excellent conversation, and I'm very grateful to have been part of it. If you'd like to connect with me, then please visit my website. It's www.jamieferrell, that's JamieFerrell.com. You can also check out my blog there. I've got several pieces on mindfulness, on gratitude, on self-empowerment. And I'm also on Instagram at jamie.ferrell. I do have limited availability for one-on-one sessions that I can facilitate locally if you're in Minneapolis or via Skype. So just reach out to me through email from my website or through an Instagram message.
All right, thank you all. And before I close, I just want to thank everyone for joining me for this final episode of 2017. We will be having a replay unless someone wants to come in and host for me in January. On January 7th, I will be in Hawaii presenting my first internationally published paper, which actually connects to what we're talking about here. It's called Our Phobia, Their Fear, the Impact of Neophobia on STEM and STEAM Education, where I'll basically be discussing how parent mindsets impact students' creativity and curiosity, which prevents them from going into the STEM and STEAM fields. Also, I would like to announce to any teachers who are listening who are facing burnout, I am launching an anthology project called the Mediocre Teacher Project, and I'm looking for your stories of burnout, being tired, frustrated, uninspired, and how you've been able to turn that around so that we can reach the younger generation of teachers to let them know that there is hope, even if you go through a period in your career where you feel like you're really not making a difference. As always, you can follow me on Facebook, Marquita Smith Blades, or at the Dr. Marquita Blades Show. Thank you again. It's been a great, candid conversation.
The biggest station in the world, playing all of today's hits. You're listening to Instinct Radio.